Welcome. I am your co host, Henry Hatter. Welcome to Flint, Michigan, the birthplace of General Motors Corporation, the original place of the middle class, and the city with the highest income per capita in 1970. And welcome to the city that will rise again like the phoenix when the right people are at the table. Today, I have with me Dave Martin, a Republican. Uh, Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Henry.
It's a busy weekend, and I really appreciate you coming down to take this time to be with us today. I want to, first of all, start out with a quote from the Detroit Free Press. And I quote The 35th Michigan Senate District is competitive. Republicans hope that they can win the Michigan Senate at 19 GOP seats and 19 Democrat seats, which would give them an opportunity to obstruct Democratic policies. Is that why you are in Lansing?
I can see where the word obstruct comes in because a 1919 split vote would allow the president of the Senate, the the
Yeah. The vice,
the, gov- the well president of the Senate then that can cast the deciding vote for the
yes,
governor.
same as in Lansing, Washington.
One Republican can step out of the House and abstain, and there's not a tie vote, so therefore
Yeah.
the president of the Senate can't break a tie. Now, if there is something that the House is pushing through for the good of Michigan, bills that are good for Michigan, that's just politically motivated to stop so that the Republicans don't get a win. Now having 1919 in the Senate, they can then decide, okay, we will take this up and send it to the governor's desk because it has to get done, where we wouldn't have had a voice to do that before. The Democrat Senate would just shut it down and we'd never get the House bills through the Senate. Very few have gotten through this year anyway.
But is that the will of both the Democrat and Republican Party to fight obstructively to do the people's work?
That's a nice theory. Politics have gotten quite severe, divided, partisan lately. So everything is revolving around the next election. So if we give the Democrats a win, if the Senate gives the Republicans a win in the House, then we have a better chance of messaging that to the people and having something to broadcast for our campaigns. Same way, if we gave Democrats a win, then they could say they got this through and so forth. I mean, look at it when a bill gets through, it could have been sponsored by me. It got through the Senate and then signed by the governor, and the governor is going to say, I did such and such. Even though it's not her idea, it's not her bill, it's not her committee, it's not her hearings. All she did was sign the bill, but she is the governor. But that's how it works.
Yes, that's how it works. Now, you mentioned uh, legislation. How many pieces of legislation have you uh, sponsored that gives you a worthy, credible place to be in that position?
I have many bills that I've sponsored and or co-sponsored. The first session I was in, we were the majority, and I had some bills signed into law. And this last session in the minority, we still had some things that went through. Common sense, good for the people of 10 million people. And now, as the chair of natural resources, I'm guiding some things through that are very necessary. So the amount of bills doesn't matter as much as the work that's done to do the bill.
Yes.
So sometimes we might be setting it up for another session. We have conservative values, and we know it's not going to get signed by the governor at this time, but the message in the press, they'll know that this is what we want to do next session, and that be a message we have because we want conservative values out there versus a liberal value for, say, economics.
Okay. Dave, why is it that you chose public service as a career choice
I can almost
instead
say,
of
yeah,
Yeah.
I could say it almost chose me. I retired from the Air Force. The Air Force had three core values they taught us. One of them that I use to this day is service before self. Um, I was back in my hometown for 10 years after I retired. There was an opening on city council. There was things with our water treatment plant that weren't funded properly. There's some other nitnoy things going on. And so I decided to run for city council, got elected, was a little bit involved with the county politics. My name got known, asked me to do some other things, became a county commissioner, working down in Oakland County. Didn't have time to put a lot of stuff into it that I wanted when I was on city council. So I gave that my job up to be on the county commission and worked in Mott Community College up here. And then I was successful during the blue wave here in Michigan, and they thought I could take that to the House, and I did. Flipped the seat, and I just want to make sure that the values that I've espoused that got me to this point, that got me to winning races, those values are Genesee County values and now North Oakland County values, and I want to make sure that as long as I can keep those values messaged out there and reelected, I don't want to give up that seat to somebody that wouldn't have those values.
Well, how do you think that those ideals line up with people who run for those positions of responsibility, accepting the public trust, and yet are seeking recognition, influence, and the good life, as Socrates would see it? How do you reconcile
Well,
those
let's put it this way: as far as the good life goes, just let it be known that the legislature getting it paid in $2,003. So they took a 10% pay cut back in the recession, like in 2010, which took them to $2,003 paycheck. That paycheck has never changed, has not had a cost of living increase. So we get paid the same today, 22 years later. So living a good life is not necessarily part of the deal. A lot of people, it's hard to attract somebody in, say, their high earning years to leave a 150, 170, $200,000 job. Very smart people, very well versed. They're not going to come to take half their paycheck cut, more than half their paycheck, to come work in the government just because they're nice. Especially when we only had 6 years, three term limits. Now that we have 6 terms, hopefully we take away the young they're not all upstarts. I don't mean to, but people were using it for a career builder, get on their resume because it was good money for a young person. And then somebody at the end of their life, career span, not life, but career span, like myself, I got a military retirement. I could step up and give the service. But that mid earning period was kind of empty. Well, now we have 12 years. And so we have a little more history, get a little more commitment to the job, and we can get more knowledge without having to rely on the lobbyist as much.
Thank you, Dave. You're addressing a diverse audience today, and they want to know about what you think and what's motivating you to serve in a position where you represent your constituency, but yet you have an obligation for the minority element. How do you go about assuring that people who don't look like the major constituents are also served? I think I asked you that question once before.
And I don't know if I answered it the exact same way, but of course it's going to be the same vein of answer. Because this year we're coming up with the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. So the founding principles in there, the true ideals, not the way they were practiced then, but the ideals they were trying to reach towards and that we still are trying to attain, are things that I've always kept in the forefront. And I've been calling them, instead of founding fathers and founding principles, I've been saying the principles of the revolution. That's what we fought for. People died for these things. So I just want to make sure that we continue to provide protection to the minority because we're a republic. If it was democracy, the majority would rule. And, that they say like four wolves and a lamb deciding what's for lunch. It's going to go to the majority, it'd be the wolves winning.
Yes, and what we're
Nobody's speaking
talking
for the
about
land.
right here, to clarify to the public, what we're talking about, not necessarily minorities in terms of race or gender or anything like that, but the part that's not represented by the majority.
Correct. So it could be it could be a
People
conclave
have
of
always had that that argument
Mhm.
between each other. Well, the majority takes everything and leaves us nothing. But in the Constitution, they wrote language that assured that the minority would be represented.
correct. So
Okay.
whether it's a racial divide, whether it's
And
or if it's religious,
mhm.
because we do have freedom of religion and and the Bill of Rights. Um, there's we have to make sure that it's not it's not that we protect everybody so they have an equal outcome. They have the equal chance for that outcome, and that's what we're protecting.
Yes. Now, I wonder if people understand what you just said. I have a question somewhere here. I'll come to it. That deals with DEI. How
Well,
does that?
so DEI comes down to me as whether or not it's merit based. So I mean, you choose your path in life, and if you're born, you have the same opportunity as anybody else when they're born.
On a
Sometimes
level playing field.
correct. Now, your socioeconomic environment can change that a little bit. How you're influenced by what it influences, but everybody has that same starting chance. And even later in life, when they graduate from high school or graduate from college and they go away from their parents, they still have that same starting point now of developing a career or what path they want to take. And it's their decisions that they have to own up to. So if they want to make a decision to hang around with a bad crowd, that's their decision. And the people you hang around with is going to really define who you are. If you make a decision that you want a career path and you have a defined goals you want to get towards, and you work towards those very honorably, you have a good chance of succeeding in something. No guarantee that you're going to succeed, but it's your choice of what path you want to take.
You're saying this applies to all Americans, irrespective of who they are, how they were born, how much money they had, uh, what the geography was, etc. This is for all of the American people. This is that level playing field that you're talking about.
That's the way it's designed.
Yeah.
And when you throw things in a way to give one segment of society a better opportunity than another, um, it gets things almost. We are a freak nation. So when somebody's born with a silver spoon in their mouth, yes, they're a little different than somebody that has to come up through blue collar life. I get that, but that doesn't mean that somebody can't still strive. Somebody still can't go from rags to riches. The opportunity is still there for anybody.
Johnny Appleseed. Let me ask you this about the president's plan to level the playing field. No references to DEI, etc. Can that really work in a society that's not 100% supporting that idea? Can it work?
Well, that's the question is why don't they support it? Where does the lessons come from for the conventional wisdom that there is differences like that? Um, where is the entitlements that doesn't allow somebody to rise up and enjoy the middle class and then even further when it's almost made for the people on welfare not to get off welfare. They can't have bank accounts. They don't know how to, so therefore they don't have checking accounts. They can't get a car. Limits their opportunity for where they go for work. I mean, why do we keep that there instead of opening the opportunity for financial independence and going in the middle class? If we had the middle class that was obtained for everybody, and we had two-parent families, we wouldn't have poverty. We wouldn't have crime. I guarantee that.
If you again say that again so the audience will hear you.
If we had a path, everybody obtained middle class in a two-parent family, we wouldn't have poverty and we wouldn't have crime.
I think those are words of Thomas Sowell,
Well, there's
close to it.
there's several people that would say things like that, and that's not a guarantee that there's still people that have a little strangeness to their brains, and there's mental illness out there that's not going to say there's no crime. But
Yeah.
if you really want to solve the problem, that's how you solve it.
But then there's the human condition, which we all have. We're all guilty. We all make mistakes, and we all hurt other people. So how do you make government work? How do you make government work to satisfy the condition where we human beings are just not will not want to provide equality and equity, stuff like that for other people?
Okay, so again, we're in a republic, so we recognize everybody's right to enjoy society, prosper in society. We have a rule of law, part of being a republic. So we have a framework. If men were angels, we wouldn't need that, as Madison said. But we have a rule of law. And if we have two-parent families that teach their children to live in that manner, um, it works. It's been seen many, many times. So, what's government's involvement with that? The rule of law, and then to get out of people's lives. Um, we shouldn't be, for example, like go back to the welfare model again. Um, if they want to do like universal paychecks to some people or some societies, some cities, and well, if you did that, then where's the incentive to enjoy work or get a satisfaction work, to live up to your potential? And where's the satisfaction of earning something? And then, of course, what do if you don't have the financial education to use that money because you never had it in the first place or never was, school doesn't cover that, how do you write a check? How do you save money? What do you need to save money for a house? Um, why are you paying so much interest? Where's your taxes going? You wouldn't be able to ask that in one of my office hours if you never had the financial training. Where's my taxes going? Because you wouldn't know. Your welfare check doesn't have the taxes taken out of like a paycheck does. So, what do we get for our money?
Yes. Let me point out to you that we have, well, I'll just come to that question later. What are the implications of condemning individuals based on their appearances and the music they listen to, as suggested by Joy Reid, and those with similar perspectives? I don't know whether you know who Joy Reid is.
I,
And here's my question. In the context of abundant opportunities in an urban America that abounds today.
so I think Joy Reid is the one that lost her job at MSNBC.
Yes.
Okay. So I've seen snippets of hers. And I only can identify her because she has a unique haircut.
And
Um,
blonde.
well, that's, I mean, she stands out.
Yes.
Obviously, you can recognize her.
Yeah.
Um, music. So I think she's said that Elvis stole his music, got his fame on the backs of black soul music or something.
Yes. Something like
Okay. Well, when I heard that, I'm going, uh, Jimi Hendrix. It doesn't say Jimi Hendrix singing Bob Dylan's All Along the Watchtower. It doesn't say Cyndi Lauper singing a male's song. It doesn't say the songs that Fleetwood Mac taken from others. Doesn't say uh, Manfred Mann's, whatever it is, singing Bruce Springsteen songs. So other people have always done these songs and taken and did and put their own twists on them. I
Did
mean,
Joy Reid shoot herself in the foot?
I don't see how that applies. Nobody can take another person's song and make it better or make it their own.
I know that there's a lot of conversation going on with what you said because it is disturbing and and it is
And if
uh,
you want to say urban music's different than any other music and you shouldn't take that, well, trust me, the words that are used in a lot of urban rap songs, you will never ever come out of my mouth, ever. So what do you want? What do you want to stand for? Do you want to stand for stuff that the Grammys have played on TV, which have just been filth, literally, or do you want What are you celebrating there? A difference, or the fact that they can be so outrageous with our freedom of speech that it's offensive?
Yeah, okay. I wanted to get that out there because there are a lot of people that are concerned about it on both sides of the aisle. So, thank you for those responses. What is the impact of tariffs on the Michigan economy? How does it impact uh, states that borders foreign nations like Michigan does, Canada?
Right.
Okay.
So obviously we have a long-lasting history sharing things. I mean, it showed up during COVID when the trucking companies were shut down from crossing the bridge. It really hurt our manufacturing here. Why the trucks couldn't come and drop something off, never be in contact with somebody, and let our factories keep going. I never understood that. I never understood why Governor Whitmer and the Canadian government did that. Fought to get them to cross the bridges and do that. So we have a lot of history with doing that. How we, the Line 5 products, petroleum products come through Michigan, and they're used all through um, the Great Lakes basins around Lake Erie for manufacturing. We got a long history of working together in treaties, protecting the Great Lakes for fishing. So the tariffs, we tried NAFTA. NAFTA didn't work. Now we have the um,
Why
Mexico.
didn't it
Well,
explain?
because it didn't really honor everything it was supposed to. And now the Mexico U.S. Canadian agreement is kind of following the same things. If you look at the stuff that Canada puts tariffs on, like 253% on some of our dairy products to protect their dairy farmers. So tariffs are used to protect certain
But
industries.
you know why NAFTA was put in place back in the 90s?
Well, it's supposed to be free trade, so there wouldn't
Yeah,
be tariffs.
yeah. So it was to challenge the strong Eastern markets, which were beginning
Sure,
to challenge the American market. It was a good idea, and it worked well for
for
a while.
for a very short period.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but so you think now it's out of whack?
Well,
Explain to me the
that's an
difficulty.
international
I know it is, and
that is very
yeah,
difficult to get into because I don't know every
yeah, yeah.
nuance of all the different tariffs that are placed
I
on things,
realize that. Yeah.
or and it goes to licensing truck drivers that come across the
Yes.
border. It goes to so many different things. But yes, the biggest thing that we need to look at is if we have manufacturing here, if we can use a true free trade between Canada, Mexico, and the U.S., then we can stand up to China that we don't have to have to wait on them for our products. Our supply chain can be based here in North America, and that will take care of things for our military supplies, our automobiles, everything that we do for this new green energy programs that the free market's not really holding up to. Um, are stranglehold by they got a complete monopoly in China on a lot of these rare earth metals and so forth. Why are we dependent on China, our biggest enemy? We need to have a strong base here, the Canada, Mexico, U.S. agreements that we can stand up to somebody like China.
Okay. Well, when the president rolls back regulation, how does that impact businesses? Michigan would have been 30 years ago, if it were isolated from the nation, would have been the number 5 industrialized nation in the world because of its great manufacturing and its power of workmanship in the industry and the people who supported it and the organization itself. We were a very complex industrial place that would, and we're only the size of Japan. You
I
know,
I will give you just come to the top of my head just now. The one big thing I can tell you on regulations that ruined Michigan, cafe standards.
pardon?
Cafe standards, the fuel economy for
Oh,
vehicles. We had to race to the bottom to make lighter cars, more unsafe cars, smaller engines to try to get to the economy that a federal regulation mandated, not the free market. So then everybody started buying SUVs. The SUV is the biggest selling vehicles out there.
yes,
They don't apply to the cafe standard.
yes.
So people, the free market then went to the SUVs. and left the sedans and the small cars behind. So we still weren't making our cafe standards. I mean, it was the worst thing.
But we still, the last one that really worked was the 21 miles per gallon.
They're trying
But
50.
but I think it's only up to about 28 to 30 is close to the
But
average.
the way they do it is they make small cars
Yes,
and then
the average.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
but the cars were smaller.
yeah.
They were, so families didn't want to put their families in a small car.
Mhm.
Now, a single person, even a single parent, a working parent driving to work, not taking the family, they'd commute in a smaller car. They don't want to take their family on a family vacation in a smaller car, not because the compactness of it and they're sitting so close to each other, but because the safety factor of the lighter weight of the vehicle. When now, because the marketplace really doesn't want that, the marketplace went to SUVs and trucks. You have these bigger vehicles on the road, and you're driving this little tiny car.
Yeah.
You're putting your family in danger,
Yeah.
and it's all because the federal government mandated something.
Now, that's one aspect of regulations, but what about the other types of regulations that changes the way we do business uh, in the workplace
Well,
and
obviously, we have to have regulations, otherwise things could be unsafe. So logical, reasonable regulation that
that protects public health and safety
right. So we have oversight by the legislature for some of those, but if you just let it run rampant, then the bureaucrats will
run the
make
country.
a regulatory thing for everything to protect their job.
Yeah.
It really doesn't help the economic development or the betterment of. I mean, um, there's things that we do in some farming conditions, mostly when it deals with wildlife, like with white-tailed deer. The DNR tracks certain things, and the agriculture department tracks certain things. Sometimes they track the same thing, so now you're doing duplicating the work. Why are we duplicating work anywhere? Those are the things we need to make sure we're not doing. Um, the duplication of regulations. I got a bill out there right now to cut. Uh, there's 6 standards. I'm cutting one of them out, just one, because it's just unnecessary and duplicative. So let's just streamline it. I'm not saying get rid of all the regulations, but let's look at regulations we have and make sure that they work, make sure there's oversight. Um, if the federal regulation is safe, the state of Michigan passed the law to make it, we can go stronger than the federal regulations. So if you can manufacture something in Indiana cheaper because we have a stronger regulation in Michigan to make it more expensive. You have to get a new machine, you have to do new filters, you have to do new discharge, new testing, new regulations, new monitoring. Why don't you just expand in Indiana instead of come to Michigan? Because they're following the federal regulation. And we have a stricter one in Michigan. So you'd have to look to see if we're cutting our nose off to spite our face.
Yeah, you mentioned the bureaucrats. If I were to come to you with a problem, and I would say, Dave, I have a problem with people discharging environmental waste into an open field. So I call Lansing, and they will give a response to me. And they may say, and those are not experts. They just do their job. They can't make any regulation, they can't add to anything, but they can shut people down. They can discourage people. So, how difficult is it for me to reach you to and you solve my problem? Is
Well,
my
solving is one thing. Reaching out to me is the easy part. I mean, between Googling um, the website itself, office hours, all kinds of things are out there with the name, address, the state legislature. If you don't know, if you can't find who your state legislator is, you're not trying very hard in today's world. You're just trying to find an excuse not to find them. If you call somebody you do know, like we just changed districts a couple years ago. I've had people call from the old district, and I've taken their question and passed it along to their new representative. So there's ways to still get it done. But we have in my office, we have liaisons with the departments. So if you have a problem, overregulation you feel, or you see a problem that should be addressed, we can contact the Department of Environment, Great Lakes Energy, and have something for that discharge type issue to go out and look at. If you think there's somebody poaching, we can get hold of, DNR, um, anything like that. If you think a building construction's bad, we can get MIOSHA. We can call these departments, and usually we can get a response.
Good. Well,
I'll give you a great example, Henry. Unemployment during COVID. We helped a lot of people get their unemployment taken care of. And then after COVID, when they followed the letter of the rules that they were supposed to do, and then were given a bill to pay back some of their COVID, we said no, they did everything they were supposed to do, and the courts agreed with us. So people didn't have to pay back exorbitant amounts of money.
who objected to it?
Well, the unemployment agency goes, wait a second, we weren't supposed to give them $9,000 more, but your paperwork said this is how to do things, and they filed that paperwork exactly. And your workers were all temporary employees because you had to expand during COVID for unemployment, and they're all working remote, so they didn't have supervision, didn't have somebody to ask directly, so they were doing things on their own with very little training, very little supervision. And
Mr.
this is the problem you have.
Bureaucrats, yes.
It's not the citizens' problem.
A good example of what we were talking about, but bureaucrats and the people who work in the legislature to pass laws and stuff have little influence when bureaucracies take over.
When we have a new bill come in front of us, we have testimony on those bills in committee, for promoting the bill and opposing the bill. And the departments, when they come in and they think that it's not something that they want to add, or they want to ask for more full-time employees to finish the job that we're going to tell them they have to do, when they have 4,300 jobs in the state of Michigan that aren't filled already, and they want to add more, what are they going to do with it? Not fill it? So they have an opportunity, even the departments come in, to argue their point of view. The bureaucrats have their option to come in and speak also. But it is the voice of the people for the legislature, the House of Representatives. It is the people's house. It's what the people want. Um, and when I say the vast majority, in this case, it's not in democracy. It's in the fact that an 80-20% issue that happens quite often nowadays. Why aren't we answering that? Um, like I'm going to go off strange off of this, but like boys and girls locker rooms, 80-20%. Why aren't we addressing that? That's a majority rule.
Dave, does again legislation produce winners and losers? Because they put people in a matrix. They put their legislation has expected outcomes. And yet, there are others who believe in laissez-faire. If you let the workplace go by itself and not have so many regulations. And this was a theory of the founding fathers too, that government should be small and it should be effective. And it should be able to move and should be able to arrive at consensus. But today, David, you look around, there's nobody at consensus. We are in a pickle most of the time.
I'm going to use Michigan's education programs right now. So we had a program that graded third level reading skills. And if you weren't at your level, the schools and the parents decided whether that child should move on or not. And the parents could overrule that and still have their child progress. Or they could take their child's learning seriously and say, no, they need to learn to read. And of course, we need to have programs. We have 440 reading programs in the state of Michigan. We need some good, solid, real scientific, proven, fact-based reading programs. That's a little different. So we used to grade them on reading. We don't anymore. They repealed that last session. We used to grade the schools on how well they performed. They repealed that last session. We are worse now this year than we've ever been in the state of Michigan for performance in education. Excuse me.
I think we're 48th, are we?
Well, it depends on which level you're looking at. We're like 38th in math and 44th in reading.
Yeah.
We're not, who's going to look at Michigan for a workforce if you can't read?
Yeah.
And Right now, the eighth grade reading comprehension is horrible. The graduation rates are kind of falsified because we're pushing people through, but they can't read.
But, there is a problem there. The classroom itself is highly competitive. It's been that way since day one. When Socrates walked the earth, he asked people questions. And yet, education is the oldest profession that gives rise to all of the other professions because you have to have education in all of those things that are part of human activity. But yet, today, the classroom is still highly competitive and produces winners and losers. And some nations have taken steps to mitigate those kind of uh, outcomes so that kids don't feel that they're a loser. See, if you don't start and get the fundamentals, and parents don't train the kids, help train the kids before they go to school, and some kids go to school and know nothing, don't even know their names.
So
So,
I mentioned two-parent families
yeah, yeah.
before. Reading to your kids is huge, absolutely huge. And if you're too busy trying to make incomes because we have a bad economy, or you're a single parent, it's very tough to spend that time with your child. Huge to do that. Um, I had a question not that long ago about teacher pay. They said we need to pay our teachers more, and I said I agree with you. Teachers deserve a lot more pay. Well, why don't we do that? And I said, because you're not in the free market. You are working on tax dollars, and the people have a say on where your tax dollars go. So we can't just give you a raise and not give them food. We can't just give you a raise and not give them books. We can't just give you a raise and not have heat for the classroom. These all come from tax dollars. It's not a marketplace. We're not competing for the best product, and you can pay more for what you want. It's got to go across the board. And I said, you have you know groups to advocate for you for your pay, but it's got to be at a sacrifice for something else. So it's a
but
difficult thing when it's not in the free market.
but this problem of dealing with so, some kids who don't pay attention in the early years and in the early semesters, don't get the fundamentals, they will never catch up. There's no way. Time only moves in one direction. And those kids um, they become problems in the classroom.
So,
So,
but they're in sometimes they're a square peg in a round hole. So we only have one program in the United States, one program, K through 12. That's it.
yeah,
If you don't fit in that program, too bad. You're not going
I
to.
think we're going to arrive
So,
at the same place.
so at
Go
what
ahead.
point? What point do you go skill trades, college,
Yeah.
STEM?
Yeah.
Where do you do that? And how who's successful in doing that?
So other countries have taken steps like that, particularly the Scandinavians and the Germans, the Japanese. They've all taken steps to segment kids out who don't want to go to college, who don't have the enthusiasm of the will to sit in a classroom.
And that doesn't say you look at some Steve Jobs and some other people that didn't graduate from college or whatever, and still produced a huge fortune. That doesn't mean that once you get out of the formal education
You're
days,
not
and,
valuable.
and and you've matured,
Mhm.
and your cognitive brain, which we can get into, that doesn't mature till 26, but they want to make children make decisions at 10 and 12 and 15 that are incredulous in my opinion. But if their cognitive brain develops, and all of a sudden they go, hey, I want to do this, and they become the world's greatest scientist, neurosurgeon, whatever they want to become, because it just didn't blossom as fast as another child. But we're fixed in that K through 12 system as it is right now.
Yeah, I think that it's about time that Americans begin to think about this. Should we have a public education system that where all kids are expected to go to college?
Well, I think we're gotten away from that quite a bit. anyway because skilled trades is begging for people for
Sure.
so long. Um, and there's, you mentioned 1970, we're the highest income in the nation. That's because of manufacturing. Uh, could we get there again? Well, manufacturing with advanced manufacturing and robots and so forth, it may not be as lucrative as it was for the actual person, but the person working on the robot, it would be. So there's still opportunity out there that doesn't require necessarily um, a college education. We had recently, deal just fell through out in Mundy Township for a mega
Oh,
site
yeah.
for advanced
Yeah.
manufacturing. Those jobs, where they exist in the world, are paying 80, 90, $100,000 a job with a proficiency certificate, not a college degree. So those things are out there and available, and if we can grab hold of those, it'll make a big difference.
So, succinctly, give us a hypothesis of where we ought to go with respect to education. Now, public education is a failure the way it is today.
So
Where do
that's
we go from here?
third rail of politics. So public schools is ingrained in our whole background of the development of the United States. Public education is part of that. You're guaranteed an education. So how do you do that? Used to be the churches did that. The churches established Yale and Harvard and Princeton. Um, so it hasn't how we do it today isn't the same we did it when the country was founded. And people could read. I mean, reading
Yeah.
was huge
Yeah.
in
We
our
were
founding.
We were the most efficient nation in the world at one time.
But we were most literate too.
Literate. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So it didn't matter if you lived in the backwoods someplace, it was important and people learned. Um, and parents were obviously involved. So how that got away, and we kind of coddle people to make them not feel so disenfranchised, or oh, you're not the same as somebody else, so we got to do something different for you. More worried about their, I don't know, their feelings or whatever, causes a lot of this mental anguish, mental health issues we have nowadays. Um, I tell you what, if we can get people to work and people work and have a self worth and can provide for a family and have the satisfaction of their kids looking up to them and they know that they've done a good job, something they produced, um, that's so transformational for people. So we need to look at those things to get people that from the education system to the workplace. If it's skilled trades, it's skilled trades. If there's a need that they're good with numbers and they go to college, great. But we have to find that niche sooner rather than later, and not just put everybody in the same box, K through 12, because if they fail, they're out of the system, and that
Yes.
hurts.
Yes. Now, again, referring to education. Now, in 1979, 1970, no, 1969, it was President Carter that created,
Mm. That had been Carter came in 70 after Ford. I think
yeah,
76.
1979.
Yeah.
Okay, got it right at the first time. He created the Department of Education because it took 25 years to desegregate schools. That was 1954 to 1979, about 25 years. And we were dismally failing. And school districts whose authority was to desegregate schools failed miserably. We had we have some 700 school districts throughout the nation. I think it's about 700 or 800.
Oh, I'm sure it's
Yeah,
well
it's
more,
a
way
big
above that.
network, closest to the people. Now, this is the one that people guard cautiously and voraciously. But yet they couldn't desegregate schools. They had all this power, and probably some of the superintendents were intimidating because they thought they ran the school district, but it was elected officials that ran the school district. Then they tried the big city mayors to do the same thing, and they did some good, and then it went to the legislature, and the legislature still couldn't get it done. And President Carter, in his wisdom, did think that it needed a federal component. So he created the Department of Education, and the Department of Education desegregates schools. It only takes 1% of the GDP budget to run the Department of Education. And and other things that the department does now could be given to other departments, like the Treasury Department, stuff like that, because it controls no parts of education. Is there a need for the public education, the
So,
Department of Education?
so you're saying the need that it was formed for has been met.
Yes.
Why do we still have it?
Yeah.
That's the only question. Okay, the need that is formed is met. So now it's just another layer that filters money.
Yeah.
And you got to pay all the bureaucrats on the way down to the system that could be going directly to the school systems locally. So yeah, there's probably and the decisions. Hey, we're making decisions at the government level that we have to do. I'm not happy about it. Cell phones in the classroom. School boards are afraid of the parents.
Yeah.
Bottom line. They want us and the state legislature to say ban cell phones so they can look at the parents and say, sorry, the state says you can't have them.
Well, there are some school districts that are
School
starting
districts have
us.
done it, and the school
Yeah.
districts that have already banned,
Yeah.
have,
Morris is one.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Grand Blanc, Davidson, I
Yeah.
can go down a list of
Yeah.
the ones that have
Yeah.
banned them, and they say assaults on teachers are down.
Davidson has been doing that for years.
Yep.
Yeah.
They say that when the ones that recently banned them, they said that the noise in the hallway went up. Kids are talking to each other instead of their
Mhm.
nose in the phone.
Mhm.
So yes, we know it is needed, but to make it across the board, the school districts that don't want to deal with it from the parents, they want
Yeah.
the legislature.
Yeah.
And I said it's a school board issue. It's a
It's a
school board
school
issue.
board
It's a
issue.
school board issue.
Then
But
if
to
they
get
can't
it,
do it, they should be disbanded.
then it comes to the
And
state.
yeah, yeah. But boards of education are required. They're obligated to create policy for the district, and people need to know that the people closest to schools will lose their responsibility or their inputs or
Right.
their right
Their
to
voice. Yeah.
their voice in school matter. So they need to put backbone in school boards to make sure that school boards are doing their business. Because right now they couldn't desegregate schools, so maybe the people who wanted to disband school districts at that time had a point. You gotta government gives you all of this power and influence to do the people's will. And you must be able to do that because you have the public trust. You must do it in an honorable way. And school districts can do that because they're closest to the people.
That's the theory.
Yeah.
That's the reason the House of Representatives is reelected every 2 years. Is because it's the closest to the people, the most responsive to the people. If they're not responsive, you have the best chance of changing the structure. School boards. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a popularity contest. They
I
need
wanna
to know
hear-
what they're talking about.
We talked about a lot of things and a lot of things that people wanted to talk about that's important to them. We've talked about schools. We've talked about tariffs. We've talked about places, the workplace. We've talked about bureaucracies. Now I want to talk a little bit about healthcare. Now,
All these subjects, I'm just an expert
uh,
at.
healthcare in the United States is between Medicaid, Medicare. It's 17.6% of the GDP of the country. The GDP is one. And school districts take 17 point converted to percentage, 2 of that GDP. And it's growing every day. And people are, through abuse, through mismanagement, through fraud, through immigration, and through a myriad of other places. And we have systems set up so that we can reduce the cost of healthcare by using primary healthcare systems like FQHCs that were created in the 60s to reduce the load on hospitals. When you go into the hospital, hospitals charge you for uh, the cost, protective cost, so they're not sued. So they give you scans of all kinds to make sure that they get diagnosis right. But if you go to a FQHC, you may get out of there for about $200, the cost. And part of the cost is supplemented by um, a fee that you pay at a minimum. And but if you go to the hospital, you may and get hospitalized for something that could have been handled by primary care. It could cost you $5,000. And so healthcare is likely to consume us if we don't find a way to lower the cost of healthcare. And people say, well, healthcare is a right. It is not a right. I'm sorry, it's not a right. A right is something that's given by God
Right.
or whatever. But it's not in the Constitution. So we got to learn to be more frugal as we use healthcare, and so it doesn't collapse. This whole healthcare model can collapse the whole
Mm.
country.
And the way to describe that it's not a right is you can't live an unhealthy life and expect a right the government to step in and fix it.
Yeah.
Because you did that in large part to yourself. Diabetes, a large
Smoking,
part, smoking,
smoking,
alcoholism.
drinking. Yeah.
So anyway, and no exercise. You
Yeah.
go through any of this. So we try to take little stabs at this because we don't want to dismantle the healthcare system. However, the little steps we're making, work requirements for Medicaid. If you're able to 20 hours of work, 20 hours of volunteerism, school time, whatever it is, you can still qualify if you have children. You're still going to qualify for Medicaid. But the ones that are able to work need to work. The system's not designed to catch everybody. It's not designed to give free health care. It's supposed to be for the ones that need it. Costs of generic drugs. Medicaid, we're given brand names for everything. But your major healthcare companies, my healthcare, are going to be generics. Why is Medicaid getting, a, 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 a platinum program to get the brand names?
Just to give you an idea of what Medicaid is like, what the cost is to the United States, we spend in this country about 6% on our GDP for Medicare, the GDP. I'm sorry, we spend 17.8% for that. But other countries spend, now like consider Switzerland. Switzerland is a very wealthy country. People are wealthy based on their GDP and on the wealth that they have per individual. When you average it out, that's the wealthiest country in the world. But it pays, we pay $13,450 a year per person for for Medicaid, Medicare. In Switzerland, they pay 8,000, and it drops down from there. And most of these are Scandinavian countries, and they're countries like the United States, the same demographics and stuff like that. In China, the same way. China has a very effective healthcare system. But you want to comment on it?
Well, they said Cuba had a good one too. That's
Yeah.
not true. So my comment
This is
is
based on GDP now.
okay.
Okay, how it gets down, where the rubber hits the road, we don't know. But
Right. So is those countries you mentioned, very compact, very indigenous
mhm.
across. So everybody has the same backgrounds, same ethics,
Yes.
same values, makes a difference. Also, they don't have any natural enemies. So, like Poland, they had Germany and Russia going back and forth across them. So, that's horrible. Other places like that too. The Middle East was always stirred up. The U.S. we had the martial law for a long time, kept things out of our part of the North America. Um, but the world has gotten smaller. And when I was in Germany, they talked about the healthcare, and they talked about look how good our roads are. I looked around, I'm going, "You speaking Russian? Uh, you know, are you living under fascism? Are you, do you have any? How many submarines do ballistic submarines with missiles protecting you shores? How many, fighter aircraft do you have manufactured protecting you? How many, like now we have B-2 bombers. How many other people have that? Who's doing that? And we do that as sacrifice to our roads and our healthcare. We people
Because we
should.
protect the rest of the world.
Why aren't
Yeah.
we championed around the rest of the world saying,
Yeah.
"Thank God America is there so we can have good healthcare and good roads"? No, they just laugh at us for having bad roads and bad healthcare, but we're the ones allowing them to do that.
Yeah. And see, this is what the American people, this is why you are so important to discuss to this diverse audience, which is evolving into a pluralistic audience from a Eurocentric one. And that may, I hope everybody understands that statement because uh, this is what the data shows.
Well, you introduced
Uh,
me as Republican.
yes.
Well, I have an R after my name because I have conservative values. I'm pro-life, limited government, pro-military.
What's RAF?
Hmm?
What's RAF? You said RAF. Yeah.
I'm
You,
pro-life, pro
okay.
Second Amendment, pro limited
Okay. Yeah.
government.
Yeah. So my,
Yeah, so I mean, these things are conservative values.
yes.
The family, the
Yes.
nuclear family.
Sure.
These are conservative values. Making sure that you save enough money to provide for yourself. All these conservative values. That puts me in a camp that is not necessarily recognized in the Democrat Party.
Yes.
So I identify as a Republican because I have conservative values, not because I have some person that I champion or something like that. I identify as Republican from the conservative values. So that's when we talk values. I think most people can get along and talk about values, especially when it comes to family, the economy. There's a lot of things that are common. Uh, Taking care of our kids in education, healthcare. There's answers there that are based in values and morality. That's not based in partisan politics.
Well, since students will probably be looking at this show as well, what do you suggest? What would you say to students out there who waste their time in the classroom and don't, and the gravity of what that means in the future for students who sit in the classroom and don't grasp the fundamentals and only become uh, problems to the classroom
Yes.
at a later date? What do you tell kids?
So I would tell their parents. I have a bill that got passed for 8th to 12th graders to get all the information for career paths that are available: public service, skilled trades, college, military, all these different career paths they can go to, so they don't waste their time. If they don't qualify for the military because of some um, behavioral drug thing they were on and that disqualifies them military, don't waste your time going on a military path. Find something else. And the families can decide on this and they can focus on what they need in their core classes when they take in high school or opportunities outside the classroom for apprenticeships and so forth to get them on that path. So it's a whole knowing what's available and it's all Googleable. I use Google as a generic term. So um, learn what your interests are, focus on those, get there. Um, but the parents have to be involved in their kids' lives. The parents have to be productive to show their kids that it's worth being productive. There's just a whole litany thing of a holistic approach of the family that comes together that makes that stronger, and you can actually uh, the behavioral stuff. Um, I mean, when you have a single mother that doesn't graduate from high school, the chance of her and her kids being in poverty are like 80 some percent.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
both her and the child.
Yeah.
And if it's a boy, 90% chance of being incarcerated. So those things are what we got to focus on as a society is make it worthwhile that marriage is important, commitments are important, raising children are important is important, earning an income and providing and being a provider is important. These things need to be championed and not have a substitute by the government stepping in, doing
Well,
those
what do
things.
you say to kids who say, "I'm mad. I'm mad about this and mad about that. I'm just mad." Do you what do
I
you
am not the
tell
behavioral
kids?
specialist in school. Mental health is a huge issue right now, and because of everything, all our social media, TikTok, Facebook, FaceTime. Kids don't will say things on these social medias they'd never say face to face, and they're getting information from bots, not even from real people, and they're challenging their what they're thinking and how they think. I mean, I'm sure there's been people that have cross dressed there, throughout society, but today when you have bots telling children that they can be a different gender without a scientific background of what their Y chromosome means, when we have laws in the state of Michigan that tells a Baptist preacher with a social degree that if a parent comes to them and says, "My boy wants to be a girl," and the pastor says, "Well, let's examine what it means to be a boy first," he loses that social license, that counseling license. The state of Michigan will not allow that. These things are just insane to me. To allow a child to go through gender mutilation treatments that they can never consummate their marriage. They don't know what their brain's going to be like at 30 after they make these changes. These things, you look back at what we did, with slavery before the Civil War. You look at what fascism did in Germany with the Jewish population. 50, 60, 100 years from now, are they going to look back at us and say, "You allowed your children to be mutilated"? I think that's an actual question we should be asking. So there's those types of things that we need to fixate on to make sure that we're on the proper moral direction compass that's going to solve a lot of issues for crime, poverty, and so forth, instead of just tweaking everything with the government.
Yes, the government should have a limited input on the lives of people, the way the founding fathers envisioned it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dave, you've done a great job. You've been a good counselor for our kids. We've covered a lot of
You,
issues.
you covered a lot, Henry. So much that we brushed a lot of this stuff, and the details are very important. So don't
Yeah.
think these are the answers for
No,
everything.
no, we don't.
The devil's in the details.
No, this is not for to convince anyone of any action that they should take, but to start a conversation.
Yep.
This is what this is all about today. Start a conversation. We've talked about things that are challenging. We've talked about the issues that school districts have. We've talked about the issues of in the workplace. We've talked about the issues with kids. Where do we go from there? How do we solve the problems, particularly in the classroom? Because kids are going to be the next generation of leaders. And we need to make sure that we do our best to encourage them to protect the democracy that was created for them and the wealth of this country that was handed to them.
And right now, coming up to the 250th anniversary of our manifesto, the Declaration of Independence, is a great time to really focus on this stuff. Sure, the founding fathers had failures. Sure, they're human and weren't perfect, but their ideals, what we're striving for, should not change. We should strive to be better. We should strive for those ideals that all men are created equal. Those are the things that we need to focus on, not, oh, they own slaves. That
Yeah.
wasn't the purpose of the Declaration. The purpose was the ideals,
Yes.
and we have to strive for those ideals.
Yes, and because we're all flawed by nature
Oh, sure.
to the human condition. And if other people were in the same position that, say, the dominant people in the world who control the wealth, the power, and the influence that creates this reality that we see, those who were on the outside would do the same thing as those who uh, who cause harm to people in the world. And Dave, you've done a good job. Thank you so much. I have nothing but praise and admiration for you. You say we skipped over a lot of this stuff and the details, and this is what it's all about. You've done the right thing.
Thank you.
We
Henry.
have come to the end of our show. Sergeant Dave, I'm going to call you Sergeant
I
Dave.
appreciate that.
You have been a fantastic guest. And in my opinion, show has improved significantly by featuring a professional like you, person who, we used to have people on the show that were opinion makers and they wanted to rant, but those rants were only important to the people who aspired to them, but they did nothing for the public good. And in a country like this, we have to learn to live together. And that's what the future holds. And that's a challenge to us.
Can I add something about when you said public good? I have always tried to focus on what I call the common good. Public good's a little different, but the common good versus the greater good. Greater good can be defined by what you want to get to. That
Mhm.
could be your agenda. The common good doesn't matter what I do; it's going to benefit you. So I try to focus on the common good rather than somebody's opinion of what a greater good would be.
Well, I thought about all three of those characteristics, but I'm glad you identified all three of them. And I hope our audience also.
I'm far from being perfect, but I kind of try to remind myself of these things all the time. And I surround my people with people. I surround myself with people that correct me to maintain that path too.
And I want to thank you, Dave. And I hope our audience will have already recognized this, that you will respond to questions that you know that are challenging and are testing and that are biting. Like some of these questions were biting. And you had the gravity to stand up and respond to them.
Well, I
You
understand the other
say
side
there are
too.
details, sure. And you've got to understand both sides of the issues. And that we really thank you for all that you have been to us today. And you in your delivery, you were smooth,
Mm.
you were confident and articulate. And I think that that's exactly what people who are part of the informed public wants to see from the people that they've elected to Lansing. Thank you very much, Dave.
I appreciate your confidence, in me, Henry.
Thank you. The show has come to an end, and this is Henry Hatter signing off. And to this point, I say stay focused.